What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and some more Blood and Plunder for you today. So we're wrapping up the basic English sub-factions today and taking a look at the English Royal Navy. So roughly time period-wise, if you're looking to have a equivalent force to your opponent, 1652 to 1713. So one of the sort of more longer-lived factions here that we've looked at now. The Pirate Hunters were super short, followed by the Buccaneers, roughly 40 years or so, and then the Caribbean Militia, actually sort of the longest tenured of the bunch here. But the Royal Navy obviously is going to give you some options and benefits if you're playing naval-based games here in Blood and Plunder. So, what do we got? 2 special rules, +4 when determining the attacker in the scenario. So again, I'm going to give you that option there, or more likely to get you the attacker in the scenario. All Sea Dog and English Militia units in this force gain the Tough special rule, so that's another great one. Now, the list does do some funky things with force organization, though. So as you can see, you only have 1 core unit, and that's the Sea Dogs, but that's not a bad thing because they're a pretty badass unit. And on top of that, we're getting Tough for free, so hey, awesome. Now, support, we do have a lot of options here, and unlike a lot of the other lists like the Buccaneers, where there's just a ton of support units of different nationalities, here it's a little more limited to some Dutch compatriots, but here we have the militia and musketeers relegated to support units, which makes sense. Again, the Navy should primarily have these sailors available to us. But then for the Dutch allies here, we have the Zeelieden and the Enter Plague as able allies as well. Now, commanders, of course, any Navy commander, but also here Charles Carlisle or Thomas Sprague as our command options, and we'll take a look at those guys in our separate series on the commanders. Force options here as well, though, so we have a little bit of variant. Naval landing force, so if you don't include any size 2 or larger ships, then you could actually bump the musketeers up to core units as well if you want to go with a sort of smaller naval task force, keyword smaller, as in the ships being smaller, not necessarily size of the force. So just something to keep in mind there. So, and then for our large games army scale here, obviously our other English factions become the allied factions, so makes pretty much sense there. So we'll be right back in just a second, guys. We're going to show you Tough and just how that applies here as far as militia and Sea Dog, and then if we do decide to go with the force variant, we can actually bump the musketeers again into the core. So we'll take a look at all that in here in just a second for you. Alrighty, guys, we're back. Just a quick look here at Tough so that everybody understands why this is good in this list. So if this unit, so again our Sea Dogs and militia, end their activation with any amount of fatigue, keyword any, and they didn't push, they can remove a point of fatigue at the end of their activation for free. So it's almost like gaining an extra activation to, like rally or something along those lines that would get you a point removed. So just keeping that in mind now, again, for our Sea Dogs and the militia. Now, interestingly, it doesn't affect the musketeers, who do get the bump into core if we make that adjustment in the list variant. But nonetheless, all your Sea Dogs can have that, and that's going to be your bread and butter for this list anyway. So something pretty neat to take a look at, okay? So then we're going to jump back real quick and, again, take a look at the wonderful Sea Dogs for the Brits. All right, guys, we're back, and again, a quick look at the Sea Dogs. We touched base on them a little bit in the previous video. Again, we'll have a whole separate series on more sort of deep dive unit reviews. But again, 4 points base here. We get trained pistols, standard melee weapons, fight of 6/6, shoot 7/7, and resolve, an awesome resolve of 5. And they already come with brawlers, expert artillery crew, and sailors, and now we're getting Tough on top of that, which is awesome. Plenty of unit options again as well, so if you want to get some more exotic weapons in there, so some blunderbusses, stink pots, grenades, fire pots, etc., we can do that. We can also actually sort of shift gears with these guys and give them firelock muskets for a little bit long range pew-pew for the unit there. And then also to sort of, depending on the ships that we're running in the scenario and all that, and the size of the game, you can actually downgrade them. You can't mess with their experience level, so no upgrades to veterans if you want to go that route, but you can essentially just downgrade it just having a sword. So, but then they're 3 points apiece, so you can field some pretty large units with that, or larger units, and just sort of bum rush enemies with those, and hopefully they will waste time shooting at them, and maybe hell, you make it into combat and start slicing and dicing, and then you can move up more easily with your guys. Oops, sorry for the shaking there. More easily with your ranged weapons, or let your ranged weapons do work unimpeded. So something to keep in mind there, but bread and butter of the list. And we're going to go back one more time to our militia and musketeers. So again, the militia, nothing fancy, but they do have drilled, and in this list they'll also have tough, which does make for some interesting options for these guys. And again, not really doing a deep dive on this, and they're also inexperienced as is. So again, potential to really have kind of a horde in this list, although maybe worth upgrading to trained, certainly. Musketeers, though, again, could be moved to core depending on if we switch to the list, but regardless, you're still going to field some of these, I think, in the list, right? Expertly drilled is nothing to laugh at, and an awesome resolve of 4. So these guys are pretty awesome to put on your ships and just let them do their thing. So that is a quick rundown of some of the basics for the list. Again, a pretty nice one, and certainly makes the English pretty scary at sea with that, or even smaller naval engagements or amphibious engagements. And again, we'll touch base on the ship sizes and ships options, all that stuff, in a whole separate series of videos. But again, if you take the small ships, you can do some interesting rearranging in here. So basically your canoes, rowboats, and piraguas, actually, if you want something a little beefier at that small size one. So let us know your thoughts on the English Royal Navy, how you field them, what type of focus do you have in the list? Do you run the variant? How do you kit things out within the individual units? Let us know in the comments, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and we will have plenty more Fire Games content for you, and specifically Blood and Plunder as well. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.